I have a love-hate relationship with the Sony FX30. There's a lot to love about this camera, and no camera is perfect, but the more I use it, the more I'm annoyed at certain aspects with this camera. Hey there, my name is Keith and I'm a designer and videographer from Cleveland, Ohio. If you're into either of those things, check out some of my other videos after this one. My first love for this camera is the price and the features. I still can't believe all of these features exist in a camera at this price point. Given the camera has features that other more expensive cameras don't have, I feel like I'm getting away with something here. However, one small hate is that there are no cinema camera things like shutter angle, false colors, or other camera tools in here. My next hate for the Sony FX30 is the low light performance, but hear me out here. This camera has two different base ISOs and switching between them with Cine EI is really easy, but they're still pretty close together. After using my full frame cameras, the base ISO between those is actually very noticeable, but the FX30 isn't quite as big of a jump. I know this is one of the reasons that the FX30 is the price that it is, but once I've used the FX3 or FX6 or the A7S III, the FX30 feels like it's a little bit light hungry, especially in 4K 120p. It's more of an issue when trying to match exposure with full frame cameras. Your life will be much easier if you have a proper lighting kit, but if you're doing run and gun situations, this can be a little more difficult if you're trying to match different cameras together. My next love is you liking this video for the YouTube algorithm and the internal LUTs. I absolutely love recording in S-Log3 sgamut.cine, and on my other cameras like my A7S III, I had to use a combination of zebra stripes and gamma display assist. It was exhausting to have to go out and film like that. I got around this by using a monitor and adding a preview LUT, but if you're using a monitor, then you're adding more batteries and weight to your overall setup, and sometimes I just wanted to shoot with the picture profile off. Having the LUTs baked into the actual display of the camera is a huge plus for me. And if you're a beginner wanting to get the most dynamic range out of your camera, you will absolutely love this feature. My next hate for the FX30 is the rolling shutter. The sensor readout isn't as fast as the other full frame cameras, and it feels like it's something similar to the A7 IV. If you're filming talking head videos or scenes with minimal or no movement, you will probably not notice this at all. However, if your shots have minimal to fast action, the rolling shutter is very noticeable. For example, in this clip of my wife standing in front of the subway, you can see the rolling shutter issues that I'm talking about. For this price point, is that an acceptable level of rolling shutter? That's for you to decide, but whenever I see action clips filmed with this camera specifically, that's one of the first things I notice is that wobble when moving back and forth. My next hate for the FX30 is the crop, and yes, this is kind of a controversial one, but my other Sony cameras are full frame and I've bought all full frame lenses to go with those full frame bodies. However, when it comes to selecting lenses for the FX30, I just select something wider and that's how I get around that. If I was going to vlog with this camera, I would pick up something like the 11 or 15mm Sony lens, and I do have videos about the 11 and 15mm Sony lens that I will leave in the description below. However, I realize this is probably not how most people are going to be using this camera. Coming from another APS-C camera where you already have all this crop glass will be a huge plus, or love, I guess, in the scope of this video. One plus for this camera though, if you're filming in 4K 60, there is no additional crop on top of that APS-C crop. The only crop will begin when you're filming 4K 120, which is a 1.5 times crop, which is a lot. But it's only when you're filming 4K 120, and I like that the 60p doesn't have that crop like the A7 IV or my A7R V. My next love for the Sony FX30 is the form factor. I love the button layout, the recording lamps, the mounting points, and the similarities to the FX3 makes buying accessories and cages really easy. And if you do want to upgrade in the future, you already know how to use it because the FX3 and the FX30 are pretty much the same. It does take a little bit of getting used to if you're coming from the Alpha series like the A6400 or the A7S III even. The button layout is a little bit different, but once you take it out and have a couple of shoots under your belt, all the buttons and layouts actually do make a lot of sense. I remember struggling with Cine EI whenever I first picked this camera up, but this Cine EI also translates to the other Sony cinema cameras. So once you figure that out here, you can pick up any other Sony cinema camera and you'll know how it works. I remember going to the second base ISO and adjusting exposure from there. And when I reviewed the footage, it jumped to the base ISO, but my other adjustments didn't work. So that would kind of scratch my head there for a little bit. But once you figure it out here, you can transfer that knowledge to the other Sony cinema cameras. My next hate for the Sony FX30 is that there's no internal NDs. I know for this price point, this isn't even worth mentioning, so I'm not gonna spend too much time on this, but I would love to see a small form factor camera with internal NDs. Even if stabilization was moved to post-production like it is on the FX6, I can totally give that up for the auto ND. The auto ND on the FX6 is fantastic, and I would love to see that brought into a camera with a smaller form factor like this one. For the sake of time, I'm just going to rapid fire through these last loves. First off is no overheating. I love being able to throw this on a tripod and just let it record and not have to worry about it overheating. Next is great autofocus. Sony has been killing it with autofocus lately. As long as you configure your zones and your speeds, you will get great results out of the autofocus on this camera. The next one is USB-C charging. I love that I can charge this camera and just power it forever, not needing a dummy battery. I have a whole video going over that I will leave in the description down below. The next one is live streaming, and like I said with the USB-C charging, if you have a power delivery cable, you can stream and charge your camera at the same time. So that is very nice to not need a capture card and a charger. It's just one cable and you don't have to worry about your camera dying in the middle of a Zoom call or something. My next love is the Creators app. There's solid video performance through there. It's not as laggy and it connects way faster than the old Sony app, so kudos for making a new app. My next love is that there is a full-size HDMI port on here coming from other APS-C cameras that had those mini ports or micro ports. Those were kind of a nightmare to work with, so I like that there is an HDMI port full size on the FX30. I also like that there are mic jacks and monitoring ports here. That's been around on Sony cameras for a while, but I do like to monitor my audio. If most of the sound recorders these days have the ability to monitor your audio, but in case you don't, you have the ability to do so on the body. When it comes to my love-hate relationship with the Sony FX30, it's much more love than hate for this camera, especially at this price point. I love the features that transfer over from the more expensive cameras are making their way into Sony's more affordable line of cameras, and I will continue to use this as my B or C camera. Let me know what you think of the Sony FX30 in the comments down below, and if you like this video, you'll probably like this other video I made about the FX30. Thank you for sticking around to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.